بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وخاتم النبيين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بالإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your brother Abdul-Lateef from both Arabic Virtual Academy as well as Abdul-Lateef.com. Today I want to deal with a question. And one of you sent in a question asking about, to make a long story short, why do I talk about madhabs? What's the big deal about a madhab? And it was a lot of clam that came with it, a lot of speech that came with it. So I want to answer the question like this. The reason why people are asking this question is because a lot of times we don't really understand what a madhab is. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, how? I've been Muslim all these years and, can't madhabs and all the rest of it. All right, fine. Inshallah ta'ala, you guys can leave your comments below, and I'll try to deal with each one of your comments as I usually do. And if there are enough of them, we can make a little series out of this. But I want you to understand something. A madhab is not exactly what many of us believe it to be. It's not how we do everything. It's not how you pray, and it's not how you fast. And these are like the answers to a bunch of equations. You look at it like math. You have different ways now that you can do multiplication and division and addition. Now they got all this new math and all of the rest of this stuff, right? These, we're going to look at them as though those are schools of thought. They're madhab. They have answers to them. But the equation and how the equation is solved differs. Or even forget the new math. We'll say 2 times 4 is 8. 4 plus 4 equals 8. 10 minus 2 equals 8. 16 divided by 2 is 8. There are a lot of ways we can get the answer 8. Right? We need to understand the equation and how to solve the equation. That is our school of thought. That's our madhab. Now, when we bring it back to fiqh, now I just did this to make it easier, the concept to grasp. When we talk about a madhab, there are 2 ways that people study madhabs. The first of them is they study the madhab of an individual. Imam Malik's statements only, or Abu Hanifa's statements only, or Imam Ahmad's statements only, or Imam Shafi'i's statements only, and so forth, because there were more than just 4 imams, right? Or 4 imams that had madhab. Or you will find that people will study schools of scholars that were upon the way of an imam, like the Shafi'i scholars, or the Hanbali scholars, or the Maliki or Hanafi scholars. Now it's not just their imam anymore, it's the imam and the scholars that followed their way. Right? Now obviously there's going to be differences of opinion amongst them. But, so the answer isn't exactly what we're aiming at when we say we're following a madhab. A madhab is a school of thought. So we're saying, okay, when we deal with the proofs and evidences, when we have to weigh between proofs and evidences, we say that this is stronger than this. And then another school is going to say, no, actually this is stronger than this. Or we're going to say we put this before this. Some are going to say, no, we put this before this. Some are going to say, listen, the way we understand this is that it's general and something comes to make it specific. Others are going to say, no, it's general and nothing came to make it specific, so it remains general. And I know I'm just throwing out a bunch of terms right now. But it's about the equation. Even though the majority of us don't understand the equation and how it's done, we're going to find that our answers generally all follow a particular equation. And that's our school of thought. You understand? Even though we're only getting the answers because we're not looking to understand those things. But the madhab is a lot bigger than what we're looking at. It's a lot bigger than just looking for the answer. How do I pray? Okay, the madhab is going to tell us, okay, we do it this way. Somebody else is going to say, no, we do it this way. They got their proof. Why don't we go with this opinion? Because according to the madhab, this is given preference over this, or this is seen to be as something that abrogates this, and over here it doesn't. This is the school of thought. This is the madhab. The reason why it's important that we adopt a particular school of thought, especially in the beginning, is so that we're not all over the place. And I have another video we've done about the whole issue of having no madhab at all. The reality of that. I talk in there about the issue of not knowing our madhab as opposed to not having one at all. But when we talk about the issue of just doing things and taking from this and taking from that and taking from over, we're going to find sometimes the reason why we do this is because we find this to be stronger than that. And yet the reason why we do this is because we find the other thing to be stronger than this. Or here we're going to say this is general and there's nothing came to make it specific. And over here, with the same principle, even the same proof, we say that it's general and this came to make it specific. So we're going to be all over the place. We're not going to have anything where we can go back and say, okay, listen, the reason why we're put this before this is because of that. Because when we say that, okay, we're doing this, somebody's going to come to us and say, well, you did just the opposite here. What are we going to be able to say? Nothing. Because how can I come to you and say, listen, this is stronger than this in this situation, but in this situation it's not stronger than it, as a dalil, as a proof? We have to have a position that we take. We can't be here and here at the same time. Either we're going to be here and both of our opinions are going to be here, or we're going to be here and both of our opinions are there. You understand? So this is why understanding really what a madhab is. It's a whole slew of sciences that are brought together. Principles in the language. Principles dealing with maqasid, principles dealing with usul, principles dealing with this. This is stronger than this, or this generally means this, or this is, we take this to be able to understand this, or we take this to be able to make specific something that is general, but we can't do it over here. There are a lot of things that go into the equation that give us our answers. You understand? Just because we're only picking things up at the top, the answers, it causes us not to see all of this is going on down here. And this is the actual school of thought that leads us to understanding or leads us to doing this. This way, all of it is in line. We're not over here on this issue and way over here on this issue and up here on this issue and down here on this issue. Everything goes together. We're not contradicting ourselves constantly. And being as though we don't have the knowledge to be able to actually get in and do these things, this is why people follow a school of thought. Because you had a scholar or bona fide scholars sit down with all of these issues and say, okay, because of the way we deal with this situation, the answer here, here, and here, and here is this. And because of the way that we see this, the answers to here, are this. And everything is going in line. We're not contradicting ourselves at all. And the thing that we need to understand, or one other thing that I'd like to point out, I should say, is this. These issues dealing with the madhhab, they're issues of ijtihad. No one's telling you, listen, you have to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, then you're going against the sunnah and this. These are issues of ijtihad that are based upon, I'm not going to say guesses, but scholars doing their best to bring forth the ahkam that were legislated. You understand? Allah Ta'ala, He commanded us to ask the people of knowledge if we don't know. Not to figure it out. Because we don't have what it takes to figure it out. The people of knowledge have this. You understand? We ask them, listen, what do I do in this situation? And they already have figured out we do this because of this, and this, which leads us to doing this. They figured it all out. Rather than us just running and saying, okay, well, I got a dalil that says this, so this trumps everything. All of your whole processes, all of the processes dealing with these sciences and all the rest of this stuff, it trumps it all. But rather, we have scholars that have already figured out this stuff for us. And we say, okay, because I trust y'all, I'm going to go with y'all's understanding. Or because I trust all of you, I'm going to go with all of your understandings. All of it is in line. Listen, this is what I'm going to go with until Allah blesses me with the knowledge to be able to figure these things out for myself. Now, you can say, okay, well, these are issues of ijtihad. These are issues of deduction. Whose deduction or whose ijtihad are we going to trust? A scholar or a group of scholars, or mine because I see a dalil goes against what they're saying. Or it seemingly goes against what they're saying. You know, I've talked to you about in another video about the reality of what they call at-ta'arud. Actually, whether or not dalils and evidences, authentic proofs and evidences, actually go against each other. And the reality is that they don't actually do that. That's something that happens in our minds because of our understanding or lack of understanding. But I don't want to get into that again. The point I want to make is that the issue of following a madhhab isn't what we believe it to be. It's not just following, getting the answers and running with them. But it's trusting the way the manhaj that was put down by the scholars on how to come up with these answers. We're trusting them. We're trusting their way. We're trusting their understanding and their knowledge. And we're saying, listen, we're going to do like you all did. Until Allah blesses us to be able to understand it ourselves by giving us the knowledge that He blessed you with. How can we say anything other than this is correct? And Allah knows best. But from the beginning, we're told by Allah, ask the people of knowledge if we don't know, or if you don't know. Not try to figure it out even though you don't have the tools. So when we don't know, we ask the people of knowledge and we go with their understanding. And how is this any different than dealing with the madhhab, or a madhhab of a scholar or of a group of scholars? Rather than taking from this one and this one and this one, we don't know what they're building their opinions upon, or not. Are they contradicting themselves, or are they contradicting one another? Or is it causing us to be contradictory in our ibadah and our worship, in our statements and our actions? So, you decide for yourself what is the safest bet. But this is why I always talk about this issue. Because we need to understand that we can't do what our scholars do until we have what they have. So if we're going to trust anybody's understanding, anybody's opinion, anybody's way, it should be a way that's set upon a particular manhaj. So we know, okay, this is the reason why. And we know that whenever we come to this situation, this is the way we deal with this. And this is the reason why I called to what I called to. So it's not about saying, okay, well, listen, you have to stick to one way. And no one's saying that you have to stick, either you have to be Hanbali or you have to be Shafi'i or Malik. No one's saying that. These are schools of thought. Because we don't know, we follow the way of the scholars or a group of the scholars. Obviously, we can't follow everyone because of all of the differences of opinion. But there's a school out there that teaches that this is the way we go about doing things and this is the reason why. If we take from this school and this school and this school, it's just like the different qira'at of the Quran or the different recitations of the Quran. You take a little bit from this recitation, a little bit from this recitation, a little bit. What are you reciting? Or what? You can't come to me and say, okay, well, Hafs recited it this way, and this was recited this way, and this was recited, so I'm just combining between all of them. These are all different ways of recitation. So we're going to say, we can even say kind of like schools of recitation. So you take from one, you learn that way, and when you get good with that, then you may move to another one. But you don't just combine between everybody and make a big hodgepodge and say, well, listen, this is my recitation. All of them are correct because they're all sahih riwayat or narrations. Just like we don't do this with our qira'ah, we don't do this with our ibad, with other acts of ibadah. I hope this is understood, and I hope it makes it a little bit more clear. And inshallah ta'ala, from now on, I ask of you all to be respectful when you ask your questions. It's not so much about arguing or arguing your point. If you have a question, ask the question, but be respectful. It's asking a question isn't so much about blaming or why can you say and how can you say and who are you to say this. It's not about who I am. It's not about how I can say. If you want me to explain why I say what I say, then I'm glad to do that. But we need to understand that we're brothers and sisters even when we disagree. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me. That's, alhamdulillah, either way. But we still have to remember that we're brothers and sisters of one another. We need to respect each other. طيب. جزاكم الله خير إن شاء الله تعالى. See you next time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.